one time I was your age. At the age of 16, I was in high school as a junior, and a couple of friends of mine and I were deciding on what we were going to do. We realized we weren't going to go to college, so we thought we better sign up and because we were being faced with the draft and everything. So we all went down to the Navy recruiting office, which was actually the Naval Reserve Office. We didn't have a Navy recruiter in town. So my junior year, after graduating, I went to boot camp, spent my whole summer in boot camp, came back, finished my senior year, and then after I graduated as a senior, my orders came in and I was to report to California. I sat out there for a couple of weeks and my orders came in and I had been selected to serve with the U.S. Navy Special Forces Brownwater Navy, otherwise known as the Mobile Riverine Force. We trained as 7-man crew members on riverboats, and there was 80 of us in our class. This area right here is where we were to be assigned and patrol. So it was the Delta of Vietnam. The thing about the south of Vietnam was 80% of all the rice that was grown in Vietnam was grown in the Delta because of all the water. There was so few roads, everything was transported by water. And the average height above sea level, 65 miles inland, was only 4 feet above ground. So when the tide would go out, the rivers miles inland would go this way, and then at the end of the day, they'd go this way. And the reason they devised my Mobile Riverine Force was to prevent the Viet Cong from getting their hands on all of the rice down in this area. They would transport all of their munitions, personnel down the Ho Chi Minh Trail, and they would put them on boats down here and land them almost anywhere they wanted. So the Navy came up with a plan. It was called Game Warden. So when we first got to Vietnam, we patrolled the coastline of Vietnam. Well, after a while, they realized that wasn't enough. So then they changed it to the name of Game Warden, which meant we were going to go in country and seek out the enemy, try to stop the traveling of all their contraband and everything.
Has anybody seen Apocalypse Now? No?
No.
Okay.
Well, that's a movie that first came out about my outfit. The riverboat that's in that movie was actually in my outfit. So this is what it looked like on a tango boat. This is the same kind of boat that I served on. Like I said, we had a 7-man crew, and each one of us knew the other one's job. My particular expertise was the engines. Now, the engines were in this area back here. We had more firepower on, they used to call us the battleship of the rivers because we had so much firepower. These are all gun turrets right here. And so there would be 2 men in here. One is a boat captain, one to steer the boat. We would have a man in here, here, and here, and they would be manning 20-millimeter machine guns. On the back here was a grenade launcher that would shoot about 450 rounds a minute. Here in the well deck, you can see 2 people standing here. This is where I had my position. So the middle gun here was a 50 caliber. These were both 30 calibers. So in the flight deck, This was developed just before I got here. They started putting flight decks on here, and that was so that if anybody got killed or shot, or for whatever reason, we could medevac them. So the helicopters would actually land on top of the boat. The bad thing about the tangle boats, they were slow and noisy. We could only go about 6 miles an hour, and that's if we were going down current, down river. The other thing was they were very noisy. Almost every time we would go out, we would get ambushed because they could hear us coming from miles away. And sometimes I think they almost had better intel than we did.
So
This
there's
is what it
different
looked
kinds
like.
of boats besides your boat? Is there other river
Yeah.
boats?
But this is what it looked like on the on a tangle boat when we would drop the ramp. So inside here, we could carry 40 troops at a time. And we would take them into the jungle, drop the ramp, insert them in the jungle. After about 2 or 3 days, we would get a signal from them to come pick them up. We worked mostly with the 9th Infantry. Our outfit and the 9th was the only joint Army-Navy operation in all of Vietnam. In fact, our base was split in half, Army on one side, Navy on the other. The bad thing about these troops going off in the jungle, because there was so much mud and water, they were only good for 3 or 4 days. After that, they were completely exhausted. I mean, if you can imagine walking through mud and water up to your waist for 3 or 4 days, and then after that, try to find a dry place to lay down and catch a nap. It was pretty difficult. On this particular day, in front of the boat, I noticed there was something sticking up out of the grass. Well, the enemy had buried a cache of weapons. These are landmines. They would place these not so much on the path, but on the side. And so they would wait until a patrol came walking down the path. They'd fire off a couple of rounds. Everybody would jump off to the side of the path. Well, they would step on these landmines. They buried these landmines in the ground with just this little prong area sticking up, so that when you stepped on it, it didn't go off. But when you took your foot off of it, that's when it exploded. And it could take out a numerous amount of people on that path. This is what it looked like when the troops would come back out of the jungle, having to walk through all that mud and everything. They always needed a helping hand trying to get up in there. So this over here is white smoke. So we would go down the river, and because they would move around while we were waiting to pick them up, and I'm talking about 3 or 4 days, we would ask them to pop smoke. And once we saw the smoke, they would repeat the color to us. If they gave us the wrong color, then we knew it was the enemy we were talking to. But you can see all this mud walking through, and then having to go through all of this vegetation. It was pretty rough work.
And being shot at the same time.
I was very glad I was in the Navy. In fact, our motto was, as sailors on the riverboat, we lived and ate, slept on that. That was our home. It was like a houseboat. Our motto was never get off the boat. And the Army had a motto of never get on the boat. So I think that's about my 5 minutes. Oh, just real quick. This is a picture of the day I got wounded in Vietnam. This hole right here is from a 75 recoilless round. They shot that probably, I'd say, within 40 to 50 yards away from me. It went through the boat, hit a big piece of steel back here, and threw shrapnel all over. So I was shooting this 50 caliber machine gun, and another guy was over here shooting a 30. And after it was all over, we both ended up getting medevaced.
Now, recall this rifle's a big, long barrel.